Welcome to the Lecture the Tattle podcast.
Hey there.
Welcome, learner. So I want you to just imagine being like the perfect partner for 10 straight years.
Right?
You never miss a date. You remember every anniversary. You split all the chores right down the middle, 50-50.
The modern dream.
Exactly. You communicate calmly, support each other's careers, bank accounts are balanced. You are, by all modern metrics, the ideal egalitarian couple.
Yeah.
And yet, if you look honestly at the relationship, the passion is just completely dead. You feel more like roommates or, I don't know, business partners than lovers.
Oh, absolutely.
So today we are taking a deep dive into some source material that argues your 50-50 fairness is exactly what killed the romance.
It is a phenomenal paradox. I mean, we spend our entire lives being trained to apply this office place logic to our personal lives.
Spreadsheets and chore charts.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
We prioritize fairness, compromises, logical problem solving, but the bedroom operates on an entirely different, physical and psychological physics than the boardroom.
Yeah.
And when we bring that sanitized, HR-approved equality into our intimate lives, we're just utterly baffled when the magnetic pull between two people evaporates.
It's crazy.
Okay.
So for you, the learner, we're pulling apart some incredibly provocative, honestly, undeniably countercultural and deeply fascinating source material today.
It really is.
We're exploring the core concepts from Deida's book, The Way of the Superior Man. And our mission for this deep dive is to extract the relationship advice embedded in here, understand why so many marriages fail, despite both people being, quote-unquote, good partners.
Right, the roommate trap.
Exactly. And we'll explore how this text suggests a man should properly lead and define the distinct roles of men and women in a dynamic partnership. But I do have to warn you, learner, reading through these sources, it absolutely flips the modern script on its head.
Oh, it really challenges almost everything we're taught about modern relationships.
It does. So what's the main thesis here?
Well, the core thesis of this text is that modern relationships are suffering from this massive silent crisis. And it's not a lack of love. Right. It's not a lack of communication. And it is certainly not a lack of friendship. According to the source material, modern intimacies suffer from a fatal lack of sexual polarity.
Sexual polarity.
Yes. And if we don't understand that one concept, the rest of the book's advice will seem like, utter madness.
Okay, let's define sexual polarity right away then, because everything else we talk about today really hinges on it. The text defines this by looking at what it calls the core energies.
Right, the masculine and feminine cores.
Specifically those two. And it makes a very deliberate point right out of the gate, which is this applies independently of biological sex, gender identity, or sexual orientation.
Yeah, the author is incredibly explicit about that. Anyone, male or female, heterosexual or homosexual, possesses both inner masculine and inner feminine qualities.
Right.
I mean, a woman can ruthlessly negotiate a corporate merger, which draws heavily on a directed masculine energy.
Sure.
And a man can tenderly rock his infant to sleep, which draws on a nurturing feminine energy. We all require both just to, function in modern society.
But the author argues there's a dominant one, right?
Exactly. He argues that about 90% of people have a distinctly masculine or feminine sexual essence at their deep psychological core.
Wow, 90%.
Yeah, only about 10% of people have a naturally balanced essence where polarity doesn't really dictate their intimate desires in the same way.
So for that 90%, which statistically, learner, includes most of you listening right now, you have a dominant core. Let's break down what those cores actually look like in the wild. Let's start with the masculine core.
Okay.
According to the text, the masculine essence is driven by a sense of mission, a sense of direction, and fundamentally the pursuit of freedom.
Freedom is the big word there.
Right. It's an energy that is constantly trying to, break out of constraints.
Yeah. The masculine thrives on challenge and overcoming obstacles. It is obsessed with reaching a state of release, or what the text sometimes calls emptiness. Yeah. The source uses this brilliant analogy regarding sports to illustrate it. It asks us to consider why people with a heavily masculine core would rather spend 3 hours watching a grueling football game or a violent boxing match than, say, a heartwarming romantic love story.
I love this part of the reading.
Yeah.
Because it takes something so ubiquitous and explains the hidden psychology behind it.
Exactly.
Think about what is actually happening on a football field. You have a team of people trying to move a ball from point A to point B.
A very linear goal.
Right. And standing in their way is this massive wall of physical resistance, the defensive line. The goal of the masculine energy is to break through that constraint, fight the resistance, and carry that ball into the end zone.
And pay close attention to what happens the exact moment they cross into that end zone. They score, the whistle blows, the tension is released, and for a brief, shining moment, there is a total release of pressure.
Yeah, the emptiness.
Exactly. They achieve a kind of psychological freedom. For the masculine core, facing that immense challenge, putting everything on the line, and achieving that empty, tension-free release is a literal form of ecstasy.
That makes so much sense.
Right. That is the exact mechanism behind why the masculine loves war stories, dangerous heroism, and extreme sports. It is the pursuit of the breakthrough.
And the text even links this to micro behaviors at home, which I found hilarious but true. Think about the classic trope of a man zoning out in front of the television, endlessly flipping channels or, falling into a deep sleep immediately after sex.
The classic complaints.
Yeah, it isn't necessarily that he is ignoring his partner.
Yeah.
It is this constant driving biological and psychological urge to empty out the stress, to find release from the constraints of the day, to reach that state of nothingness.
Yes.
But then on the exact opposite side of the spectrum, we have the feminine core. And the feminine core does not want emptiness. Emptiness is actually, terrifying to the feminine.
Totally terrifying. The feminine abhors emptiness. While the masculine is constantly searching for freedom and release, the feminine is driven by the search for love, for fullness, and for radiant energy.
Fullness versus emptiness.
Right. The feminine wants to be filled up with emotion, with sensation, with connection.
Which perfectly explains the preference for romance, soap operas, and deep, sweeping emotional sharing over the, physical, linear aggression of a boxing match.
Exactly. When a person with a feminine core watches a dramatic love story, they're connecting with that priority of love flowing back and forth.
Yeah.
The text notes that if a feminine person feels empty, they won't seek out a quiet room to zone out. They might try to fill themselves with a pint of ice cream, a glass of wine, or a 3-hour conversation with a best friend.
Because they seek emotional connection and intensity to counteract that emptiness.
Yes. And the stakes of understanding this core difference just cannot be overstated.
How so?
Well, the text argues that knowing and accepting your true sexual essence is the absolute bedrock of a successful life and relationship. Denying this core, pretending you are something you're not just to fit into some societal mold, it leads to profound spiritual and physical exhaustion.
Like wearing a mask all day.
Exactly. If a masculine person pretends they don't have a driving mission, they'll eventually feel dead inside, like a caged animal. And if a feminine person runs excessive, directed masculine energy all day at work without intentionally returning to their feminine core in the evening,
They burn out.
they quite literally dry up. They
Yeah.
manifest intense physiological symptoms of stress, resentment, and just total burnout.
To visualize this clash of energies, the text offers an analogy that I think is honestly the most clarifying visual in the entire book.
The ship and the ocean.
Yes.
What?
Think of the masculine core as a ship. A ship is a tool of engineering. It has a rudder, a hull designed to cut through resistance, a captain, and a very specific charted course. Its entire purpose is to navigate from point A to point B. It is linear, directed, and mission-focused. Now think of the feminine core as the ocean itself. The ocean is vast, it is unfathomably powerful, and it moves in all directions at once. It has deep, mysterious currents and wild, unpredictable storms. But it is also the fundamental source of all life.
It's beautiful. The ship is navigating the masculine grid of purpose and direction, while the ocean's the feminine reality of pure energy, chaos, and feeling. You simply cannot ask the ocean to act like a ship.
It defies its nature.
Completely. If you try to build concrete walls around the ocean to make it predictable, safe, and manageable, like turning it into a municipal swimming pool, you kill its wild, life-giving essence. You get safety, but you lose the magic.
But this brings up a massive dilemma for the modern listener.
Mhm.
I mean, if these fundamental differences are so inherent to our nature, if the ship and the ocean are this distinct, why do we spend so much energy trying to make them act exactly the same?
Because of how society has evolved.
Right, we look around and see passion dying out everywhere. And this is where the text dissects the evolution of relationship roles, introducing this concept called the 50-50 trap.
Yeah, the evolution of modern intimacy, according to the author, happens in stages.
Okay, let's walk through them.
Stage 1 was the era of fixed, separated roles. Think of the stereotypical 1950s dynamic. You had the macho, sometimes domineering husband, who was the sole provider, and the submissive housewife, who stayed home and managed the domestic sphere.
So, highly polarized.
Highly polarized, which generated a certain type of attraction, yes, but it was often incredibly toxic, restrictive, and manipulative.
Yeah, I mean, men would manipulate through financial dominance or physical intimidation.
And women would manipulate through emotional volatility or sexual withholding. It wasn't healthy.
No, definitely not. So society rightly looked at that stage one dynamic and said, this is awful, this is oppressive.
Right.
So we actively dismantled it and moved to stage two, which is where the vast majority of progressive modern couples reside today, the 50-50 relationship.
Or roommate marriage.
Exactly. We strive to be similar. We share the chores, we both build careers, we achieve economic and social equality. Men were encouraged to become more sensitive, to cry, to embrace their inner feminine.
And women were encouraged to become more assertive, to lean in, to embrace their inner masculine, to thrive in the corporate hierarchy.
Right. And the text is incredibly careful to note that socially, economically, and politically, this stage two evolution is a magnificent achievement.
Oh, absolutely. It allows individuals to express their full humanity. It makes us less fragmented. But here is the devastating catch when it comes to the bedroom.
Let's hear it.
This relentless trend toward 50-50 creates what the author calls sexual neutrality.
Sexual neutrality.
Yeah.
That sounds like a clinical diagnosis for a dead bedroom.
Yeah.
What is the actual mechanism happening there? Like, why does splitting the laundry and splitting the bills kill the attraction?
It comes down to the physics of polarity. Sexual polarity, that undeniable, visceral spark of physical attraction, operates exactly like an electrical current or a magnet. It absolutely requires a positive and a negative pole.
Right.
It requires a distinct masculine and a distinct feminine presence.
Right.
If you and your partner are clinging to a politically correct sameness in moments of intimacy, you are essentially pressing two positive magnetic poles together.
Oh, and they repel each other.
Exactly. You act like gender-neutral buddies who just happen to share a mortgage and empty the mousetraps together. The familiarity and the sameness breed depolarization. The juicy magnetic attraction simply vanishes because there is no arc of energy between two identical poles.
Solon, I have to snip in here because my alarm bells are ringing, and I suspect the learner is feeling the same hesitation.
Go for it.
If we are saying that splitting chores and striving for equality kills the spark, are we just advocating for a slide backward into 1950s gender roles? Because that sounds like a recipe for a toxic, resentful marriage.
The author anticipates exactly that reaction, and he explicitly warns against regressing to stage one.
Okay, good.
The nuance here is the strict distinction between social equality and energetic polarity.
Okay, unpack that.
Social, political, and economic equality are absolute necessities for a healthy, functioning society. We want that. The problem arises because the sameness that makes a modern office function beautifully, where everyone is a gender-neutral professional executing tasks, is the exact same energy that destroys intimacy for the 90% of people with polarized sexual essences.
Oh, I see. So you can't be in office mode in bed.
Exactly. A romantic relationship cannot survive on a diet of just love, respect, and friendship if you also want ongoing, fiery sexual passion. During moments of intimacy, someone must consciously and willingly play the masculine pole, and someone must play the feminine pole.
Right. If you insist on meeting exactly in the middle of the energetic spectrum, the magnet loses its pull.
Bingo.
So, assuming we don't want to go back to the 1950s, but we also don't want the sexless roommate dynamic of the modern 50-50 trap, we have to figure out how to consciously embody these poles.
We do.
And the text gives some very specific and frankly quite bold instructions on how a man or whoever is embodying the masculine core should properly lead in a relationship.
It really does.
And it starts with a concept that might sting a little at first glance. A man's highest purpose must come before his relationship.
This is one of the most profound and challenging points in the text. It argues that every masculine core individual knows, deep in their bones, that their absolute highest purpose in life cannot be reduced to any particular relationship.
Right, their mission.
Yeah, their mission might be building a business, creating art, fighting for a political cause, or discovering a scientific breakthrough. If a man prioritizes his intimate relationship over that deepest mission, he fundamentally weakens his own core. He hollows himself out.
But the counterintuitive part is how the feminine partner reacts to this.
Yeah.
Because logically, you would think she wants to be his number one priority.
It's what society tells us.
Right. Society tells us that the ultimate romantic gesture is a man saying, "You are my everything. I would give up my dreams for you." But the text says if he actually does that, if he puts her before his mission, she will inevitably lose trust in his masculine presence.
To illustrate the deep psychology of this, The source uses a dramatic, almost cinematic example.
The war one, right?
Yeah. Imagine a man is going off to war, or perhaps embarking on a dangerous, month-long expedition that is his life's work. He's at the door, hugging his partner goodbye.
Okay.
She is crying. She's holding onto his jacket, begging him, "Please don't go. It's too dangerous. I need you here." He looks at her and says, "You know that I must do this."
Right, he's holding his frame.
Exactly. Now imagine in that exact moment, he suddenly breaks. He drops his bags and says, "You know what? You're right. You are more important than my mission. I'm going to stay right here on the couch with you forever."
Wow.
What is the actual psychological result of that choice?
Well, according to the text, even though a superficial, immediate part of her might be relieved that he is safe, her deep feminine core would feel completely deflated. She would feel a profound sense of letdown.
Because what she truly desires is a man who possesses a purpose greater than his relationship with her.
She wants to feel his unshakable integrity. If he abandons his life's mission just to appease her temporary emotional weather, he proves that he is weak. He proves that he can be swayed from his center by a few tears.
Right. And if he can be swayed that easily, how can she trust him to stand strong when real tragedy strikes their family?
Exactly. And this dynamic ties directly into how the masculine core should lead. And we really must define leading carefully here.
Very carefully. Leading, in the context of this book, is never about force, coercion, dominance, or acting like a dictator. It is about providing the ultimate gift of masculine clarity, decisiveness, and spiritual direction. A man leads with love by remaining imperturbable in his truth. By establishing that unwavering, solid structure like the unmovable banks of a river, he creates a safe environment that allows his partner to completely relax and let her oceanic feminine radiance flow without fear.
That's a great image, the riverbanks holding the water. Yet so many men today fall headfirst into what the text warns against, the Mr. Nice Guy trap.
Oh, the Mr. Nice Guy trap is everywhere.
You know the exact scenario, learner. It's a Friday night. Where do you want to go for dinner? Oh, whatever you want is fine with me.
What color should we paint the living room? I don't care. It's totally up to you.
Should we move to the suburbs or stay in the city? Whatever makes you happy. We are conditioned to think we are being accommodating, supportive, modern partners. We think we're being nice.
But the text argues we're actually committing a profound act of abandonment.
How so?
The psychology behind the Mr. Nice Guy failure is fascinating. When a man constantly defers and says, "Whatever you want to do," he is effectively forcing the woman to take on the masculine burden of decision-making, planning, and direction.
He is forcing the ocean to become the ship's captain.
Exactly. And over time, as she is forced to constantly run that directed decision-making energy, she becomes angular, stressed, and chronically sharp. She ceases to trust his masculine capacity because he cowardly refuses to offer his gift of clarity.
So what should he do instead? Just dictate everything?
No. A superior man, as the text argues, doesn't ignore her. He takes everything she says into deep consideration. He listens intimately to her feelings and preferences.
Right.
But ultimately, he synthesizes that information and makes his own decisive choice based on his deepest intuitive wisdom. He takes the burden of the final call.
Okay, but this brings us to a massive point of friction. Because a man is wired for this decisive clarity, linear mission, and concrete problem solving, he naturally expects his partner to communicate with that exact same logical, linear clarity.
He expects her to communicate like a ship.
Yes. But as the text reveals, demanding linear logic from the feminine core is a fundamental misunderstanding of its nature. We have to talk about the ocean's weather and why the feminine seeks emotional intensity over logical solutions.
This misunderstanding is arguably the source of the greatest friction in heterosexual relationships. The masculine operates on concrete facts, historical data, and linear logic.
Give me the spreadsheet.
Right. But the feminine does not speak in concrete facts during moments of intimacy or high emotion. She speaks in what the author calls feeling waves.
Feeling waves. The text highlights a scenario that drives men absolutely crazy. Let's say a woman looks at her partner during a heated argument and says, "I hate you. You never listen to me."
Or she suddenly changes her mind about wanting to move to a new city right after they just sold their house.
Right. To a man who views his word as his bond and his honor, saying you will do something and then not doing it is a lie. Saying you never listen, when he literally listened for 3 hours yesterday, is a factual lie.
It computes as an error to him.
Exactly. But to the feminine, words in that moment are not a sworn testimony of historical fact. They are an expression of the emotional weather of the present moment.
It is the stark difference between literal truth and emotional truth. The feminine core responds to the immediate, visceral energy of the present second. This leads to a reality that masculine men find deeply unsettling. A man's historical track record means absolutely nothing to the feminine core in the heat of the moment.
Oh man, that part of the reading hit me like a ton of bricks. The idea that a man can be perfect, reliable, and deeply loving for 10 straight years. But if he fails in the moment, if he loses his temper or acts like an absolute jerk for 30 seconds, his 10-year resume is completely irrelevant.
It goes right out the window.
To her, in that emotional hurricane, he has always been a jerk. The past does not exist. The future does not exist. Only the intensity of the current feeling wave exists.
And men find this incredibly frustrating because they value the resume. They want to pull out a spreadsheet and say, look at my track record of being a good provider and a loving boyfriend. How can you say I don't care?
I fixed the sink yesterday.
I bought you flowers last week. But the feminine values the flow of love right now. When she is throwing these absolute statements at you, she is actually testing you.
Testing.
Yes, she is desiring your deepest truth. She wants to ensure you are strong enough to handle her storm and the world's chaos without crumbling.
And that leads to the brilliant concept of content-free complaints. Learner, listen to this scenario from the text, because I guarantee you have lived it. Your partner complains, how can you spend so much time watching TV when the garage is a complete mess and you just lost your job?
Classic.
Now, the masculine brain instantly hears a logistical problem. The man replies, I literally have a job interview tomorrow at 10 a.m., and I told you I would clean the garage on Saturday afternoon.
He's answering the literal verbal content of the complaint.
He is defending his logistics.
Yeah.
But the text says her complaint is entirely content-free. It's not actually about the garage, and it's not really about the job.
No, she is testing his strength, his physical presence, and his imperturbability. A state the text refers to as his Shivahood.
Shivahood. Like the unmoving mountain.
Exactly. She is tossing a spear to see if he will bleed. She wants to feel that his love and his grounded truth are vastly stronger than her barbs.
And if he snaps back?
If he gets defensive, if his voice raises, if he starts listing his accomplishments to prove her wrong, or if he yells back, he has failed the test. He has allowed her emotional weather to blow him completely off his center.
Wow.
She subconsciously wants to see if he will collapse under pressure, because if a messy garage argument makes him lose his temper, how will he protect her from real danger?
Okay, but if the literal content of the argument isn't the real issue, how on earth is a man supposed to respond?
Yeah.
If defending yourself with logic, facts, and scheduling doesn't work, what does? Because a man's first instinct when presented with a problem like a crying partner or a messy garage complaint is to pull out his mental wrench and try to fix the wave.
And that instinct is exactly what the author calls the fix-it fallacy. And the text is unequivocal about this. The absolute worst thing a man can do is try to fix his partner's emotional challenges with logical analysis.
Stop trying to fix her. I feel like we need to print that on a t-shirt.
We really do. Treating a woman's mood like a mechanical problem to be analyzed completely negates her feminine core. When she is upset and a man sits down and starts interrogating her, asking questions like, what exactly is wrong? Why are you crying? Did someone say something to you at work? Let's trace this back to the root cause. He is treating her like a patient being diagnosed by a clinician.
He's treating her like a broken machine.
Exactly. And the text states a remarkable sweeping statistic. 90% of a woman's emotional problems in a relationship stem simply from feeling unloved or disconnected in that specific moment.
90%. This is where another incredible analogy from the text comes in to perfectly illustrate the mechanics of this. You do not diagnose a flower that needs watering the same way you adjust a carburetor on a broken engine.
I love that one.
It's so good. Think about it. When a car engine is making a grinding noise, you analyze it.
Yeah.
You pop the hood, you locate the loose belt, you tighten the bolt, and the problem is permanently fixed. It is a mechanical logic puzzle. But when a beautiful flower is wilting in your garden, you don't stand over it with a clipboard and ask, why are you wilting? What is your root cause? Have you considered analyzing your soil intake?
You look ridiculous.
You don't interrogate the flower, you simply give it water. You give it sunlight.
And in the context of an intimate relationship, the water and the sunlight are deep, unmistakable, unhesitating love. The solution to her emotional storm is not suggesting she read a self-help book or telling her to go figure out her own problems and come back when she is calm.
Never tell her to calm down.
The worst thing you can say. The solution is immediately changing the physical and emotional energy of the space. The text suggests making strong, piercing eye contact. It suggests using physical touch or bringing in a completely unexpected, grounded humor.
Right, so you don't argue about the garage.
You don't argue about the garage. You walk over, you hold her firmly, you press your belly into hers, you smile with genuine warmth, and you penetrate that dark mood with your loving presence.
I can hear a lot of men listening to this and thinking, wait, so when she is yelling at me about the garage, I'm supposed to just walk over and hug her. She's going to push me away.
And the text acknowledges that. She might push you away initially because she's testing your resolve, but the text is very stern about the alternative.
Which is?
If you just put up with her mood, if you tolerate it, cross your arms, sigh, and wait in the other room for her to act quote-unquote sane again, it leads to deep, festering resentment on both sides. A man must not just tolerate his partner's moods, he has to actively penetrate her dark weather with love, humor, and unwavering presence until she eventually softens and opens up. He has to stay with her in the intensity.
But we have to acknowledge that diving into that emotional chaos is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
To not run away, to not get defensive when she is throwing a tantrum or crying uncontrollably or questioning your worth requires immense psychological strength.
It takes a very grounded man.
It does. This intense, unapologetic penetration of moods requires a man to tap into a part of himself that polite modern society heavily suppresses. It requires him to connect with what the text calls his dark side and his absolute fearlessness.
Let's pull the curtain back on this dark side concept because the final section of our source material gets into some very raw, primal territory regarding intimacy and actual physical practices.
Yeah, things get intense here.
The text states bluntly that a woman wants the killer in her man. Now, obviously, we're not talking about an actual murderer or a violent criminal.
Right, please learn. Do not take that literally. So what does that mean in terms of domestic daily life?
It refers to a man who is psychologically capable of facing fear, chaos, and death. The text uses a very relatable primal example. It is 2 a.m. and you both hear a sudden crash downstairs in the kitchen.
Terrifying.
If a man cowers in bed, pulls the covers up, and asks his wife to go downstairs and check for an intruder, her core attraction to him is instantly extinguished.
Oh, completely gone.
She does not want him to actually have to kill anyone, but she desperately needs to know, on a biological level, that he could face that darkness so she doesn't have to. That fearlessness, that willingness to step into the unknown corridor and protect the perimeter with his life is the ultimate masculine gift.
And that primal protective energy extends directly into the bedroom. The text talks extensively about owning your dark desires. It argues that the desire to ravish one's partner, to take her with overwhelming dominant passion, is actually a profoundly healthy expression of the masculine core.
Yes.
It's the desire to break through her psychological resistance, to overwhelm her boundaries in a completely safe, trusted container, and force her heart open to ecstatic love. If a man disowns that dark, forceful desire because he's afraid of being perceived as toxic or too aggressive, he neuters his own energy.
He becomes a safe, boring roommate.
And she feels that lack of danger, that lack of edge in her bones.
To maintain that powerful, unapologetic energy, the text delves into specific physical body practices. It talks about a practice called breathing down the front to maintain an open, unshielded physical presence.
Stop right there, because I read that phrase and immediately needed a manual. What does breathing down the front actually mean mechanically? If I am sitting in my living room or standing in the kitchen during an argument, how do I physically do that?
Think about what your body does when you feel threatened or defensive during an argument. You cross your arms over your chest, you tighten your stomach, and you take shallow breaths high up in your chest.
Right, like a fight or flight posture.
Exactly. You are physically creating a shield over your vital organs, your heart and your gut. Breathing down the front is the conscious reversal of that defense mechanism.
So undoing the shield.
Right. It means dropping your arms to your sides. It means physically relaxing the tension in your solar plexus and allowing your belly to soften. It means taking deep, slow breaths that travel all the way down the front of your body into your pelvic floor, expanding your chest wide open toward your partner.
So you're totally exposed.
It leaves you entirely physically vulnerable, but completely, unshakably present. It signals to her nervous system, I am not hiding from you, I'm not defending myself against you, and I am entirely here.
That is profound. It's turning a psychological state into a physiological action.
Yes.
Now, we have to address the elephant in the room regarding physiological actions, because perhaps the most controversial, baffling stance in the entire source material is its view on ejaculation.
Yes, the text goes there.
The text makes the bold claim that frequent ejaculation depletes a man's masculine consciousness and his literal life force. I have to admit, when I first read this, it sounded like ancient mysticism. Like, how on earth does a biological, physical reflex connect so deeply to a woman's psychological trust in a relationship? What is the actual mechanism at play here?
I know it sounds esoteric, but the source's logic is deeply rooted in the psychology of presence and energetic dominance, backed by biological realities.
Okay, lay the biology on me.
Think about the physiological cascade that happens when a man ejaculates. There is a massive spike, followed by a precipitous drop in dopamine and a surge in prolactin. Biologically, the masculine system is flooded with hormones that induce lethargy and withdrawal.
The postcoital sleepiness.
Right. His attention, which was intensely focused outward on his partner, suddenly curls completely inward. He gets lost in his own localized pleasure, and then he checks out. He rolls over, turns his back, and goes to sleep.
And meanwhile, the feminine partner is usually experiencing the exact opposite physiological reaction. She is flooded with oxytocin. She is wide open, energized, craving emotional bonding and deep connection.
And the man has essentially left the building.
Yeah, he's snoring.
Exactly. When he checks out, the woman feels that she has effectively controlled him or drained his energy. And while a superficial part of her ego might enjoy that power knowing she made him lose control, the text argues that her deeper feminine core is observing something much more concerning.
Okay.
She realizes he is weak. He prioritized a momentary, selfish, physical spasm over maintaining a state of profound, infinite, shared connection with her. The text extrapolates this to a spiritual level. She is testing his consciousness. If he cannot persist through the overwhelming intensity of her sexual energy without collapsing into sleep, how can she possibly trust him to persist through the overwhelming chaos of the real world?
Wow. So it is entirely about the man proving he won't get lost. He won't abandon his consciousness when things get intense.
Precisely. By maintaining his energy, by learning to experience full-body orgasms without the physical release of ejaculation, which the book details as a learned practice, by the way, he proves he can handle the absolute highest peaks of intensity without abandoning his post.
That is wild.
But that is the crux of the entire book. If we synthesize all these points, the dark side, the lack of ejaculation, the fearlessness, it all comes down to the masculine ability to match the feminine energy.
Match the storm.
Yes. The feminine can manifest as a gentle, nurturing goddess of light, but she can also manifest as a dark, chaotic, destructive, hurricane-force storm. If she is manifesting that destructive, chaotic energy, she needs a man whose consciousness is vast enough to contain it.
Right.
She needs a man who can meet that storm with unwavering, fearless love, refusing to run away and refusing to be broken. By doing so, he proves he can handle her darkness, and by extension, he proves he is a safe harbor from the darkness of the world.
This is a radically different way of viewing the mechanics of love, duty, and physical intimacy. So what does this all mean for you, the learner? Let's summarize the key themes we've extracted from this exhaustive deep dive into our sources today.
Good idea.
First, you must identify and deeply understand your core essence. Whether it is masculine or feminine, you have to stop suppressing that core just to appease modern workplace norms.
It's vital.
Second, you must actively preserve your sexual polarity by avoiding the 50-50 trap. Remember, equality is fantastic for your bank account, but it is absolute poison for your bedroom attraction.
Third, if you are operating from a masculine core, you must lead your life with a mission of love and clarity rather than brute dominance. You must always put your highest purpose first, even before your relationship, because that integrity is what your partner actually trusts.
Right. And fourth, you absolutely must stop the urge to fix your partner's emotional weather with logic, spreadsheets, and historical facts. Instead, you water the wilting flower with immediate physical presence and love.
Yes. And finally, you must cultivate the fearlessness to love through the chaos, owning your primal dark side, breathing down the front, and matching her chaotic intensity with unshakable, unwavering consciousness.
It really redefines what it means to be a good partner. But before we go, leave us with a final thought. We've covered massive life-altering philosophies today. What is something granular, something the learner can take away and mull over right now in their own life?
Well, I want to draw on a very specific, nuanced concept from the text regarding feminine temperatures.
Temperatures. like hot and cold.
Exactly. We talked about the ocean, but
Yeah.
the source suggests that different feminine energies have different intrinsic temperatures. Some are hot, fiery, and chaotic, while others are cool, soothing, and serene. I challenge you to observe the energetic exchanges in your own daily routines.
Okay, how so?
Look beyond just your romantic relationships. Look at how different people in your office, different environments you visit, or even different genres of music either deplete your core or heal it. If you are a masculine core who spends all day fighting fires, are you coming home to a hot energy that burns you out or a cool energy that rejuvenates you?
Oh, that's really interesting.
Right. Are you inadvertently depolarizing yourself in your daily habits? What is one small shift you could make tomorrow, maybe changing the music you listen to on your commute, or altering how you breathe during a stressful meeting to realign your daily temperature with your true core?
That is a brilliant question to leave on. Are you spending your days trying to snap two positive magnets together and wondering why you always feel exhausted and repelled? Thank you, learner, for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. Until next time.